in. So fresh out of CEC training, we need to be linking everything that we do moving forward in line with the updates to the benchmarks to clear learning outcomes. So we've tried to adopt that with our masterclass today. So we've got 3 clear outcomes that we're hoping for today, to understand the value and purpose of engaging with parents, so why it matters, to understand what tools and resources are available for you to help support that, and to gain some insights into examples of good practice as well. So just to help us measure that, and if you don't feel comfortable putting your name in the chat, you can just put the name of your school. It's just helpful for follow up if you want to do additional sessions for people. If you can just do a bit of a score out of 5 about how confident or how much you feel you know about those 3 things now, and then we'll do the same at the end of the session as well, just so that we can keep a note of distance travelled as well. Okay, so those of you with your camera on, we are recording this session, so if you don't want to be on screen, then feel free. I'll just pretend it's COVID again and I'll speak to lots of circles for 45 minutes, no problem. So yeah, and then when we get to question and answers at the end, thanks Chloe, she's going to turn her camera off now. When we get to question and answers at the end, we'll stop recording so that you can come back on camera as well, so if anyone wants to ask any questions. So moving swiftly on, what we're going to do, we're going to look at how parental engagement links to the updates to the Gatsby benchmarks, which the CEC have started referring to as Gatsby 10. And as we pointed out in our team meeting yesterday, no, there's not 10 Gatsby benchmarks. It's the results of the updates after 10 years, hence the Gatsby 10. And then I'm going to speak to you about something that's quite exciting. We're using some of our Hub Fund this year to fund a parental engagement survey that will be open to mainstream schools. Then I'm going to share some tools and resources and CPD that's available to you in case you're not aware of that. And I've left the best bit to last, so you can't drop off the call. So then we're going to hear from Sarah from Wootton Park School about some of the bits she does with parental engagement. And then Dawn was going to speak to us, but she tried to get out of a trip to the National Apprenticeship Show at Coventry, but she couldn't. So she's currently on the bus on her way back from Coventry. But she sent me a slide, so I'm going to update on something that they've done with parental engagement. And then with just a little bit of a blast from some of the things that I did when I was at Bedford Academy, and then just a bit of time for questions and answers if anybody wants that afterwards. So I'll keep going next, but I'm not sharing my thing. So as you know from when we did the Gatsby 10 update, there are 5 clear themes that came out of the updates to the Gatsby benchmark, and that engagement of parents and carers was a key theme that has been threaded throughout the benchmarks and the updates to the benchmarks. I'm not going to go through that slide. We'll send the slides out in the next Hub bulletin like we normally do, along with the recording, so you can have a look for yourself. But what we've done here is just a bit of an overview of where parent and carer engagement is mentioned specifically. So there's going to be a requirement for the careers programme to be shared in an understandable format for parents as well as young people. So when you set out your strategic plan, an element of that will be how your careers programme is going to be shared with parents as part of that, and how they will be engaged. And also it says that it should be communicated in a way that enable young people, parents and staff to understand it. So for parents, that's going to look different depending on what the context of your school is, as to what's going to work for your school. So it's not going to be a one size fits all approach. So something that I see sometimes when I do quality and careers assessments is that there is this element on the school website that talks about the careers programme, but I would say probably 70% of parents probably don't understand because it's in education speak, and it's very wordy, and the reading age of the language is very high, and that won't meet the needs of all parents, as an example. The other bit is that parents should be encouraged, not just told about, but encouraged how to use career information, pathway information, and labour market information. The report itself refers to, when they did the research for the report, it talked about how young people and parents get a lot out of qualitative labour market information as opposed to the quantitative sort, which tends to be the sort that we share the most. So hearing from real life examples and local examples of kind of employers and things like that works as well. And it also says that the career information, the pathway information and the labour market information should be adjusted where necessary for students with barriers. So for SEND students, for example, the format that's shared in should be something that's understandable for them as well. And then finally, with benchmark 8, there's that requirement that the personal guidance appointments, it says that they should be sequenced appropriately to meet the needs of the young people, but also that the personal guidance information should be shared with parents as well. So that's kind of the why bit that we got there. So kicking off, that we kick off with a winner. So what we've got, we've partnered with Amazing Apprenticeships. They've run this survey for the last 3 years, I think, with Hertfordshire Careers Hub, and the schools and colleges there have found this really helpful. So what they do, Yvonne and I have met with them, and we've gone through some questions that have been used previously by a couple of other hubs that they've used, and they give us a couple of versions, and we are tailoring these questions to hopefully help you get information about what your parents are interested in, what they know already, and how to shape your programme next year, and also link in and plan other parental events as well. So it's got wider school benefit. It doesn't just have to be about what do your parents know about careers and pathways, and that could link into post-16 and expand in sixth form or other areas as well. So the questions are prepared, we're just waiting for the final version, and then what we will do, we will select 100 schools, which means that we can share this with all mainstream schools. Those of you from SEND schools and APs that are thinking, why not? That's because we couldn't, for the fund, we couldn't have a one size fits all for those questions. So we will be planning to do something with parents from special schools and APs, but that will be at a future date when we have a new member of staff join our team that will be focusing on that area specifically. So that's in the pipeline, but this survey will be for mainstream schools. So they will create the individual links. That link will be shared with you for you to promote to your parents via hopefully your school comms, via whatever way means you can, social media, head teacher, parent governors, however it might be. And the more responses you get, then the more useful that data will be as well. And then for the schools that, for the 25 schools that gets the highest number of responses for that, we will share the information with all of the schools, but it will be in the raw format. But as part of the offer, 25 schools with the highest response rate will kind of get a beautifully presented, here's the data from your parent survey in a ready-made presentable format. But all schools that do the survey will get the results for their specific school. The results from the survey as a whole will be shared with the Careers Hub, but we will not be sharing, same as when you put stuff on EANR, no individual school data will be shared outside of the Careers Hub. It will just be rounded up into kind of percentage format for that as well. So we're quite excited about that, and we think that will be really helpful for everybody. She says going backwards. So the next thing, so I did think, oh my God, another virtual platform when we were told about the Careers and Enterprise Academy. But I have logged on and I've had a little look at it. And I think it looks really good, actually. It's quite easy to use. When you create your login, it's the same email address and the same login as you use to get into EANR. And it will then link with what your career programme looks like on campus at the moment, and it will suggest courses for you. But you can scroll through all of them. What's great about it is it tells you how long the various elements are and how long it will take, and it tells you when they add new courses as well, which is quite handy. So for parental engagement, and this might be especially useful, say if you're, well, it'll be useful for everybody, but if you're a strategic career leader in a leadership position and you want to gift the parental engagement element of that to someone else in the school that leads on that, this is something that you could kind of suggest that they do to incorporate parental engagement into what they do as well. So that might be quite helpful for that. So anybody in the school can use that. There's also, I don't know if you can see it on there, there is some benchmark for introduction to careers and how to link careers to the curriculum. So that, I know it's not the theme today, but that update for all subjects to link careers to the curriculum, there's an element for that as well. So that's kind of CPD. From a resources point of view, many of you would have seen this when it came out. So Gatsby funded the CEC to produce some Talking Futures resources that were parent facing. It was a few years ago now, but there's a whole website that's been created in a language and speak that parents should be able to understand, with some quick videos. There's explanation to post 16 and post 18 options on there. There's career conversation toolkits and conversation cards. There's all sorts, but this website is aimed for parents and carers. So that's a quick win, really, to link that to the careers area of your website and to something that you could prompt parents to look at if they've got questions, or at parents' evenings and things like that as well. The other bit to that, I've got them the wrong way around, haven't I? Oops. Yeah, the other bit to that is the, I think it's a toolkit that then links to the CEC resources page. So what we've got here, says getting the right one. Oh, I've got the wrong title both, haven't I? So this toolkit, it's got some really good tools on it that you can use to engage parents as part of your careers program. So something on there that I've used previously was there was a multiple choice quiz on careers that you could use, and I used that at a Year 9 parents option evening just to do a bit of interaction as part of a careers event. But there were 50 questions and I just chose 5 of them, for example. Okay, so that's the last bit of the resources for my bit of that. And then we're going to pass over to Sarah now. Hopefully your signal will be all right, Sarah, because you went a little bit cackly before. But do you want me to put your slide up, or do you want me to just stop sharing?
Oh, if you can put my slide up, my techie side is never good.
There you go.
Fab. So Mandy asked me to talk about parental engagement and how we do it at Wootton Park, and of course it's different for every school. So this is definitely not just like a one fits all. You can maybe take some advice from it, you don't have to, but just how we've done it. So we're an all through school from age 4 to 18, so we do have to think about different ways of engaging parents and carers. So one of our key things that we've done ever since I started was a terming newsletter. This is just a really nice way of putting your face out there as well, and just talking about what you're doing. And I actually had recently a parent contact me and he said, oh, I got your newsletter and I saw your face on it. And he's like, because we've got, fortunately, you know, a few people on our team, and his child noticed my face and went, oh, I've met with her before. And they ended up talking about careers, and actually she felt comfortable to come to me again to talk about something that was going on with her careers wise. And, you know, her dad was saying, oh, you know, she recognized you. And then we all had this very sort of helpful conversation about what she wanted to do next year. But even just having that visibility, I think, is just so important, because the students recognize your face and go, oh, you know, that's that person from school. But equally, it gives a face to the parents as well. It's not just email addresses, so I think that's really nice. So that's been really, really positive for us. And we've got our email addresses. So often, anytime I send a newsletter out, I immediately get pinged a lot of emails about things like work experience or events that we're running, or just things on next steps, so post 16, post 18. We are required to attend every parents' evening from year 7 to year 13. So that really, again, depends if that's something your school can offer. But I do find it really valuable, this kind of idea that we were talking about at the beginning about making sure that parents and carers understand labour market information and their next steps and what's available to them. It can feel like a lot of jargon, and so actually breaking that down face to face with parents and talking through it does really help. And certainly I've had parents who never would have necessarily emailed me, maybe were a bit too nervous to, but until they sat down with me for, you know, 20 minutes and we talked through what colleges or apprenticeships are, you know, it was just a much more productive conversation. So I think exposure at parents' evening is just so impactful. Again, we have Year 9 options evening and sixth form information evening. So we invite parents and carers to that just to give a little bit more information. But at our sixth form information evenings, we also do invite people like Dale from My Great First Job. So if you've had him, so we try and show both sides of the coin effectively. It's not just university, it's actually thinking about alternative pathways. And again, it just gives them a chance to hear from someone else and equally come up to the teachers or the careers team and actually ask some questions. So that's really good too. Again, I'm really eager to try and not just tell parents about what we're doing, but actually include them in what we're doing. I think it actually is really impactful for our school, having parents and carers deliver talks, attend our events. So you'll see a little screenshot of a case study. So we've been putting together that since our careers mark, a few case studies of alumni or parents who have worked with us, but kind of from an employer standpoint. And what was really funny was that I had ran a mock interview event and I didn't realise one of the employers was a parent, which I thought was really funny. I didn't realise that. But he was saying, oh, it was really great to see it from the other side. You know, I got to be here as an employer, but see what my child gets offered here. And you know, it was just really great to see how the programme operates. We now work really closely with him alongside other parents too, and it's just really nice. And I think you'd be surprised how many parents, carers, or any family members are willing to come in and talk about their job or help an event. It just, not only do they get to shout about what they do, which is lovely, but it means that they really do get to see the other side of it. And I think that's really, really lovely. So highly recommend. Oh, I think my slide's gone. Hey, so yeah, I'd really advocate for that, and we do that from primary all the way through to sixth form. So I've had veterinary nurses come in to speak to our primary learners. I think you can see the little tortoise, but I've also had barristers speak to our sixth formers who are looking to pursue law. And it doesn't even, and I think one thing that's really important is to tell them that they don't need to prepare too much. I mean, I've had a barrister stand in front of our group of law students for an hour with no slideshow, just sitting there talking about all of her experiences, what she's done, and they've just been throwing questions at her. So I think it's just a really nice way of integrating parents. It's not just about informing them, it's about bringing them into the programme, taking on that feedback as well. So something I probably didn't mention was on our newsletter, we have a feedback form. Really important to gather that, because again, you know, some parents might say, oh, we feel that there should be more support work experience, or there should be more incorporation with families as to what these new things are, like T levels. What does that mean? So you actually get some really helpful feedback, and it means that we get to shape our program based on that. So something to think about. We also do forms questionnaires. I love Microsoft Forms. I feel like it's been an absolute savior for so many things that I do. And it's just really helpful for gathering feedback, but equally tracking destinations and offering additional support. So recently we sent out a questionnaire to parents from previous alumni just to catch up with them, find out what they're doing, and equally just say, look, if they're struggling, you know, maybe a job didn't work out, an apprenticeship didn't work out, or, you know, they started university and they felt that it wasn't for them, you know, our support doesn't just stop when they finish year 13. We want to continue helping. And it's something that I've done, you know, even the last 6 months. I've had students contact me and said, oh, can you look at my CV? Can you give me some advice? And I've been on the phone with parents and carers, and it's showing that continuation of support. And again, it just means that, you know, it's a more of a whole through thing. It's not that, you know, starts and ends, it will always continue. I try and email parents and carers quite regularly as well about any events that are going on. So Dale is fantastic for that, in the sense of how much he offers at My Great First Job. And so I think even recently he was running this workshop in Northampton, and he was like, oh, it's this Saturday, it's really so exciting. So I was like really eager to send it out to all our families, like, oh, you should go to this. And then suddenly I was getting loads of emails back about either them attending or them saying, actually, whilst that's on my mind, can I ask you this quick question? So even that just is a bit of a conversation starter, and showing them, okay, I'm the person that's sort of supporting with careers. They then know who I am. And actually, they've seen my name pop up a few times. And so there's just that connect. And I think sometimes there could be a disconnect with careers programs in schools, because, as probably many of you know, when you're perhaps not a subject teacher, probably some of you are, but if you're not a subject teacher, you know, you're not necessarily seeing parents or talking to them the same way. So being able to be that person that they go, oh, you're that person that runs this, help me. It's just you're signposting, but more effectively. So that's how I do it. So there's a few pictures there. I've got a picture of me with a parent who she does, it's kind of like science within the food industry, but it's like apprenticeships as well. So she was during apprenticeship week, she came in, she did some demonstrations with the students. And so you end up kind of hitting different benchmarks, because not only are we getting that sort of parental engagement just naturally from having to come in as an employer, but equally we are talking about alternative pathways. We're hitting provider access because, you know, these are younger learners learning about apprenticeships. So you're actually ending up, instead of making more work for yourself and going, how am I going to do all of this? And especially with the new benchmark update, I can imagine, you know, lots of schools feel similarly. There's actually lots of little quick wins that you can do that just make it that little bit easier, and actually it can be quite fruitful. So yeah, that's my part.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I've impressed myself there because I remembered to take myself off mute as well, which is normally I would have just carried on talking. So no, that's great. And I think we're going to cover a few more examples there. But just, has anybody got any questions that they want to ask Sarah now while it's fresh in their minds? Or, you know, feel free to put your hand up or to put it in the chat. If you've got anybody. Can't see anything at the moment, so we'll plough on. Such a quiet bunch compared to when you're all in the room. When we go to network meetings, we can't get a word in edgeways. We can't even carry on with what's on the agenda to stop people talking. But yeah, okay. So I'm going to pretend to be Dawn now for a bit. In that, so yeah, Dawn kindly offered to share some successes that they've had with parental engagement. But like I say, she's on the bus on the way back from a trip at the moment. So she was very, very clear that it was the pupil premium lead, Sarah Davis, that thought of this initially. And she's like, it wasn't my idea, but I saw that it worked so well that it's something that we did as well. So something that they noticed was that pupil premium students, and, you know, and a lot of us that have worked in schools will say the parents that you get at parent events are never the parents that you want to come to parents events. It's all the ones you don't, you know, tends to be the parents you don't need to speak to as much. So something that they trialed was making the pupil premium parents and other targeted groups as well, making them feel really welcome. So rather than just relying on the standard school comms, they did an early invitation to those people for them to come in before the event, so that it was a bit quieter, and for an informal session that was tea and cake, you know, and that's what the invitation was. We've got this event coming, come and have tea and cake with us beforehand and get to meet people in an informal environment before they went to the formal presentation. And they thought that it might work a bit, but Dawn said that it was a game changer for their school with parental engagement. And she said it wasn't just the fact that they were invited in, it was the way that they were invited in as well. It was an individual, a written invitation. So is it that IT is a bit of a barrier for the parents as well? And so that's now got widened to something, and she now does this for as many of the career events that involve parents as possible, which has helped with parental participation with that. And it also led her to thinking, okay, well, if contacting parents directly and targeting career activities for disengaged parents in a way that will engage them works, let's try some other things. So something else they've done with the comms is to really, really simplify the comms to parents. And even if a letter goes out, they do a text talk type comms to go with it, so that it's kind of speaking the language that some of the parents speak as well. And then they developed a parent send event this year, which was an event just for parents. And it's something she did in partnership with the Special Educational Needs Coordinator, which actually links to some of those, one of the updates to Benchmark 8, which is to work with other key people in the school and share the guidance program with them. So that's like a double win, actually. So they put on an event for parents in year 10 and year 11. So because they were doing an event, they didn't think, let's limit it to year 11, let's try and do a bit more forward planning. And they invited in providers of post-16 pathways, and it was quite informal, but again, they had the tea and the cake element. And rather than doing a formal presentation where they had to sit still, it was that they could wander around, and that there were people to speak to and easy conversation makers, and if they had other children, they're welcome to come along as well. And she just, the overarching message from that was that this approach to parental engagement has kind of really been a game changer for them, and it really works. So what I've done, the email that Dawn sent me when she realised she wouldn't be able to come along today, I did some bullet points of what she told me when we had a phone call, but also there's just a bit more detail there that you can have a read through in your own time with that as well. Okay. So if you've got any questions for Dawn, feel free to put them in the chat and we can email them to her and get back to you directly with that as well. So then, just to finish off, doing a bit of reminiscing about when I was a career leader, and thinking about some of the parental stuff that I'd done back then. And there are a couple of things. So I was thinking about benchmark 1 and having something really clear and concise that would allow students and parents to understand the careers programme. Now, the careers charter that I did back then, it probably wouldn't hit the spot now because it would need to be more learning outcome focused, but having kind of a one-pager. So this is something that was done on the new parents' evening. When the parents came up on the transition evening, it was shared as part of that presentation to know that the school was committed to careers. And then year 7s would have a lesson on it in PHSE at the beginning of their time. And then we'd tweak it and we'd have it on the notice boards as part of the display around the school, particularly when our quality and careers renewal was coming up, actually, just so it was fresh in everybody's minds. So looking at that requirement for the overall careers programme to be understood by students and parents, I thought that coming up with your own charter might be something that would be really good. But like I say, rather than that as an example, maybe we can think of a draft one and produce something, or if anyone's got one that's learning outcome focused, that would be great. But having something like that can be easily shared and understood by different stakeholders, and that might help to attract new employer volunteers as well. So I think that's something that would really work. Something I've seen in two or three quality and careers assessments actually is the use of text home. So one school, whenever they link something to the curriculum, if they were doing something that involved project-based learning or anything curriculum related, they'd send a text home to the parents of that class. And I think they did it via, it wasn't group call, it was via Evolve, because you can actually pick a class group off of it. And so the class teacher would do that to say, we've been learning about the jobs linked to this. It would be really great if you could carry on with a discussion at home or something like that. And similarly, there was another school that did they did job of the week. I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit dry because they did the same thing. I mean, the My Path career videos are great, but I don't know many schools where the students would listen to that for 39 weeks of the year, just to the same presentation. But what was really good was that they would message, they'd send a group call home saying, on our Work It Wednesday, we've talked about this job today. It'd be really great if you could carry on the conversation at home about jobs in this sector, for example. So it was really short. For that particular career leader, they were head of careers and PHSE, and they were teaching. So what they did, they planned the tutor time element of that. It was a yearly programme. They gave it to the office and they programmed that in. So it was kind of a regular thing that went out, linking what they were learning to careers with parents, so that it was easily understood. So that would be something that you just need to do once a year. If you had careers as a tutor time activity, it's something that you could actually do with PHSE. Quite often it's delivered in 6-week half-termly modules. So if you had a half-termly module that were career related, there's no reason why a quick message couldn't go out to parents about what students were going to be learning about to upskill, to make them aware of that. And again, you could link that to those Talking Future resources for if parents wanted to make any more, especially if you'd put that on your careers area of your website as well. Couple of other things. There was a parent booklet that I did 3 or 4 different parent booklets. I did one like how can I support my child with careers, and that was about it's before the websites, but it was a bit about these are the post-16 options, and etc., like the basics, but with lots of pictures. And another one was, this is what we do at careers, a bit like what Sarah was saying. This is it had one of the pages, it was only like 2 pages. One of the pages was about what can I do to support my child and about the decision making, and the other page was about how can I get involved, which was like volunteering and the types of career stuff that we had that they could get involved with as well. So that worked. And then I think we had some really we had some things that didn't go very well with parental engagement, where we put a lot of time and effort into things and the turnout wasn't great, but we did manage to build parent attendance over time. And something that did work really well was when we had a parent event for key stage groups of parents during Careers Week. We used to have Careers Week in June. So we had a Key Stage 3 careers evening on the Tuesday, we had a Key Stage 4 careers evening on the Wednesday, and a Key Stage 5 one on the Thursday. And what we did, rather than it be a presentation, so maybe a bit similar to what Dawn was saying about making it more comfortable for parents that don't like that, we did a bit of a quiz from the Talking Future resources. We did a stand-up, sit-down, multiple choice quiz about, but we just did 10 questions and we had chocolate for the winners. And then we split them into 3 groups. And for Key Stage 3, we got our student champions to show them Unifrog. And so we had some computers set up and they had a bit of a Unifrog demo with a parent sharing account. So 1/3 of the parents went there, and then 1/3 of them, we had like a snake, which was what they'd learn about in careers in year 7 and year 8. So we talked them through that in detail as well. And then we had another session, which John, our careers advisor, did, which was talking about what the different post-16 pathways were now and what the different qualifications were called. So it's a bit like a myth-buster session, but done in small groups. So I think we had about 90 parents to that. So that made the groups about 30 for that one. For Key Stage 4, it was similar. We did a quiz and we split them into 3 groups, but that was about apprenticeship, sixth form and college pathways. And we had providers in it, but it wasn't like, because our parents, they weren't very good at going round and talking to everybody. Not very good, but not all of them enjoyed doing that. So we actually had it where they carouselled round and they got to speak to 2 of the providers at the same time. So it was kind of more informal conversations as well. So that worked. And then we did similar for Key Stage 5, but nobody actually turned up to that one. So that maybe didn't go so well as well. Something else that went really well was when we did the personal guidance appointments. We used to send a letter out to the students that half term that was having a personal guidance appointment. And I think now probably a group call would be better, but just to say that they're having a guidance appointment, what a guidance appointment was, and the fact that they'd have an action plan following it, which would be shared with them if the young person gave permission to share it as well at that point, and then referencing them to the website to find out more. So a couple of other bits there as well was the getting careers information in the booklets that your school already does. So the prospectus that goes to new parents. So have a couple of pages about your career program, in simplistic format, so that new parents, because, when the younger the students are, normally the easier it is to engage parents from the beginning. So if they're aware of your careers program when they're looking at schools and they're looking through that brochure, that would really help with that. And similar with the sixth form booklet as well. That's where, you could use statistics. If you've completed your future skills questionnaire and you've got some really good data from how well prepared the students at your sixth form are for the future, you can include some quotes and some statistics about what you're doing to make students at your sixth form career ready, and including that in the booklet along with the types of things they're doing. Awareness of, if you do a work experience, block release or taster days, the need for volunteers and the needs to look for placements, etc. So I think, as Sarah was saying there's lots of opportunities. Yes, it is something extra with the updates to the benchmarks, but also there's a lot of opportunities to get some wins in by engaging with parents more as well. So yeah, that was kind of it with that, which means I think we've actually finished on time for once, which will give us 10 minutes for questions if anybody's got any. And if people haven't got any, then thanks so much for your time. I would ask you to put your scores in the chat, but nobody has, so that hasn't worked. So we have to think of something else for next time for that. It would be really great if you've got any questions to pop those in the chat. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to come off mute and just to ask those directly. I'll be hanging around for 5 minutes afterwards if you don't want to ask any questions in front of anybody else as well. And if not, thank you very much for your time. I think, Vicky, do you want to stop recording now as well, in case that's just putting off anybody from